Hello everyone and welcome to Felix's weekly space bulletin. Get the lowdown on all things spacey, here with me, Felix, your not-so-roving reporter. We had an action-packed week with lots to talk about, including the first ever fully integrated Starship test flight, Falcon heavy delays, more Falcon 9 launch and landings, plus much more. If any of that sounds interesting to you, make sure to keep watching and like and subscribe. First up this week, on Monday the 17th, SpaceX went ahead with launch preparations for their Starship rocket, the world's tallest and most powerful rocket ever built. SpaceX teams went ahead with very successful launch preparations, all the way up until T-minus 10 minutes when a problem popped up with a frozen valve. SpaceX decided to carry on the launch countdown all the way up until T-minus 40 seconds and treated the day as a wet dress rehearsal. After preparations wrapped up and the SpaceX stream ended for the day, teams at Starbase tested the FireX system, which is like a mini water deluge, started offloading propellant from Booster 7 and Ship 24, and finally the chopsticks were reattached to Ship 24. Immediately after the road closure and roadblock was removed, tankers were already on their way towards the orbital tank farm. After a wet dress rehearsal or launch attempt, the orbital launch farm needs a lot of refueling before it can go again. This amazing graphic by Grandpa Joe on Twitter shows how much effort it really takes to refuel the orbital tank farm. Ship 24 takes 14 methane deliveries and 40 liquid oxygen deliveries. Booster 7 takes 43 methane deliveries and 134 liquid oxygen deliveries. After these tankers arrived, the orbital launch mount work platform was rolled from the production site to the launch site and raised underneath Booster 7 to evaluate the engines for another launch attempt. On the 19th of April, the day before the second launch attempt, the orbital launch mount work platform was then rolled back to the production site for storage. On the morning of April 20th, at T-minus 8 hours, the road was closed and preparations for launch began. At T-minus 6 hours and 24 minutes, SpaceX tested the FireX system one last time. Then at T-minus 5 hours, the chopsticks were moved out of the way of Ship 24 and Booster 7 in preparations for launch. At T-minus 4 hours, the tank farm started up and the roadblock was moved further down the road and out of the launch exclusion zone. Then at T-minus 3 hours, the orbital launch mount started venting, cooling down the lines ready for propellant load. Then about an hour later, SpaceX confirmed on Twitter they would go for prop load. Just over 40 minutes after booster prop load started, SpaceX confirmed that ship propellant load had begun. Shortly after that, SpaceX went live on YouTube for the first ever fully integrated test flight. From then, everything went smoothly all the way up until about T-minus 40 seconds, where there was a hold in the countdown for final launch checkouts. An issue was resolved and Starship was ready to fly. For the first time in history, the Super Heavy booster, with Starship stacked on top, took flight from Starbase, Texas. At around T plus 30 seconds, the first issue cropped up. The hydraulic power unit, which helps gimbal the 33 Raptor engines, got ripped off the side of Booster 7. At about T+1 minute, we can see at least 6 Raptor engines weren't firing. Then at about T+2 minutes and 50 seconds, the vehicle began to tumble just before MECO, which is the main engine cutoff. Then at T+4 minutes, a couple minutes after the booster and ship began to tumble, the Flight Termination System, or FTS, was triggered, resulting in the loss of both vehicles. Despite the loss of vehicles, this was a huge success for SpaceX and teams in Starbase, so a big congratulations to everyone who's worked on the vehicles. Back at the launch site, things are not looking good. Here in this amazing picture by RGV Aerial Photography, you can see Highway 4, which has been littered with loads of sand from the launch site and slabs of concrete that have been thrown from underneath the orbital launch mount. At the time of this recording, the road is now back open and people are allowed back towards the launch site and the beach. And SpaceX teams are in the process of tidying up and cleaning up the launch site. During the road closure on the day after the launch, someone was seen walking up Highway 4, and then later they got arrested at the end. And that's why you don't ignore the road closures. And in another picture by RGV Aerial Photography, you can see a slab of concrete that's been thrown from around the orbital launch mount and on top of the helium tanks next to the orbital tank farm. These slabs of concrete you can see in slow motion from this video that's been posted on Twitter by SpaceX CEO Elon Musk. Multiple railings have been blown over next to Hopper, who has hopefully received minimal damage. Now moving over to the orbital tank farm, which stores most of the cryogenic liquids used to fuel a Starship and Super Heavy launch. In these pictures, you can see massive dents in 3 of the orbital tank farm tanks, which will need to be replaced or fixed before another orbital launch attempt takes place. And here is what is left of the orbital launch mount. A flame diverter or a very strong water deluge system will definitely be needed. Elon Musk tweeted yesterday evening that instead of using a flame diverter, they're going to be using massive water-cooled steel plates to go underneath the launch mount. He also added in the end that they'll be ready to launch in about 1 to 2 months' time. In this picture by RGV, you can see the steel plates Elon Musk was referring to. And in these wonderful pictures by Max Evans, you can see the orbital launch mount legs will definitely need a new coat of paint. And here are some other pictures where you can see the damages done by the launch to more of the GSE or the ground support equipment. Now, enough of Starship, let's get on to some more space updates. On Monday, SpaceX confirmed another delay to the Falcon Heavy launch. They're now targeting Wednesday, April 26th for the launch of the Viasat-3 Americas mission and the Astranis and Gravity Space spacecraft to geostationary orbit. On April 19th, SpaceX launched another batch of 21 Starlink satellites aboard a Falcon 9 rocket. Falcon 9's booster made yet another amazing landing on a shortfall of gravitas. On April 21st, Northrop Grumman's SS Sally Ride was undocked from the International Space Station after a 5.5-month resupply mission. Look at this amazing video from NASA of the undocking.
Back away complete.
Okay, station copies, back away complete, and proceeding with departure command issuing.
Copy and following along.
That's all we had time for today, so make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. And a special thank you to my patrons, Michael, Alexander, Ed, and Jen. Thanks for watching, see you next week.